Part 1. Rain clawed at the glass like it wanted in. Outside, the skyline of Seattle bled into mist, the city lights smothered by a storm that had no intention of leaving. Ethan Harper sat half-submerged in a bathtub filled with water gone dark red. The fluorescent light above him flickered, casting the room in violent pulses of white and shadow. For a moment, he didn't move. Didn't breathe. He simply stared at his hands, trembling, dripping scarlet, and tried to remember when he had filled the tub. Or why it smelled like iron and rot. Then he saw it. Floating beside his leg, a tooth. Not his. A human molar. Ethan's breath hitched. He jerked upright, sloshing the bloody water over the porcelain edges. The walls seemed to inhale with him, expanding, flexing, groaning. Somewhere behind the mirror, something scratched. Once. Twice. A third time, slow, deliberate. He turned toward the mirror above the sink. The reflection was distorted by condensation. His face, half blurred, half erased by steam. And then, just for a fraction of a heartbeat, a hand without a face appeared behind his shoulder, wiping the fog from the inside of the glass. Ethan froze. The mirror cleared fully, only his own terrified reflection stared back. He whispered, "Not again." He stumbled out of the tub, slipped on the wet tiles, and crashed into the floor. The sound that came from the drain wasn't water. It was whispering, hundreds of voices, murmuring his name. Ethan. 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 He scrambled for his phone. 3:33 a.m. The same time as the other dreams. But this time, the blood was real. His skin stung from cold air. The taste of metal coated his mouth. He pressed his fingers to his neck, his pulse hammered. He wasn't asleep. A knock at the door made him flinch. "Mr. Harper, Seattle PD. We need you to open up." He hesitated. Something in the voice was off, too calm. Too steady. Through the peephole, he saw two figures in plain clothes. But the hallway lights flickered, as if they were shadows cut out from a film reel. Before he could decide, the door handle twisted. A metallic click. Then, bang! The chain lock snapped. Two figures stormed in, guns raised. The taller one, a woman with a scar running along her neck, shouted, "Ethan Harper, down." "Now?" Ethan raised his hands, blood dripping. "What the hell? Who are you?" The woman's voice was sharp. "Riley Morgan, Division 13. You're coming with us." Behind her, an older man with a grey beard and eyes like burnt glass added, "You've been compromised." Ethan blinked. "Compromised? I'm bleeding in my own bathtub." The man, Captain Daniel Reed, surveyed the apartment, the overturned chair, the flickering lights, the faint static hum in the air. He muttered, "It's already breached the perimeter." Riley pulled out a small analog recorder, the kind used in the 80s. She pressed a button, white noise hissed from the speaker. "Audio barrier set. We've got 2 minutes before it finds him." Reed turned to Ethan. "You dreamt of someone tonight, didn't you?" Ethan hesitated. "A woman. In a yellow raincoat. She was screaming. There was a mirror and—" "Don't say her name," Reed cut in sharply. "Not after 9 p.m. Rule 1. "Rule what?" Ethan's voice cracked. "You break into my home, start talking about rules." Riley threw him a duffel bag. Inside, a gas mask, an old Polaroid camera, and a roll of salt. "Put that mask on when you hear it scratching. 3 times. Understand?" "What the hell is this?" Ethan demanded. Reed looked at him, eyes hollow. "You're what we call a sensitive. You attract it. The Faceless. It's been feeding on your dreams for weeks. Every time you sleep, it grows stronger. You just didn't know it yet. Ethan laughed, short, desperate. This is insane. The fluorescent light above them exploded. Glass rained down like shrapnel. A low hum filled the apartment, the same frequency as a dial tone. Every reflective surface began to breathe. Riley shouted, "It's in the glass. Move." Reed grabbed Ethan by the collar and dragged him toward the window. They ducked as the mirror in the hallway shattered outward. Something pale and glistening began to crawl through the shards, limbs too long, skin too tight. It had no eyes. No mouth. Just smooth, featureless skin stretching where a face should be. The Faceless. Riley fired 3 rounds into it. The bullets sank with dull thuds, like hitting wet clay. It didn't bleed. Instead, it twitched, and its head tilted toward Ethan, as if it could smell him. "Out the window, now." Reed barked. Ethan didn't argue. They crashed through the rain-slick glass onto the fire escape. Sirens wailed in the distance, but every street light below them flickered out one by one, like something invisible was walking beneath them, killing the light as it passed. They hit the street, sprinting toward a black SUV idling at the curb. Reed shoved Ethan inside and slammed the door. Riley jumped into the driver's seat and peeled away, tires screeching through puddles. Ethan's breath came ragged. What the hell was that thing? Reed glanced at the rearview mirror, watching the rain distort the city lights. That, he said quietly, was a warning. The ride south toward Tacoma was silent except for the hum of the old analog radio mounted to the dashboard. Static. No signal. Reed kept it on anyway. Ethan stared at the red streaks drying on his arms. "You said it's been feeding on my dreams." "How?" Riley didn't look back. "You see what others can't. That's why it came for you. The Faceless doesn't kill right away, it keeps you awake, makes you doubt what's real until you give it what it wants." "And what's that?" "Your face," Reed said flatly. Ethan almost laughed again, but stopped when he saw neither of them were joking. They arrived at what looked like an abandoned shipping warehouse near the Tacoma docks. Riley drove straight through the rusted gate and into a dark hangar. Inside, floodlights snapped on, illuminating rows of computers, all analog, no digital screens. Tape decks, rotary phones, mechanical monitors. The hum of electricity was replaced by the tick of relays and fans. Division 13 headquarters. Reed got out, motioning Ethan to follow. "Welcome to the basement of the world," he said. Ethan looked around, dazed. "You built all this, underground." "Safer that way," Riley said. "Digital systems attract interference. It can travel through signals, reflections, anything that captures an image. Analog keeps it blind." A woman in a lab coat approached, a Korean American in her 40s, sharp eyes behind round glasses. She held a clipboard stained with something that looked suspiciously like dried blood. "Dr. Lena Park," she introduced herself. "You must be the dreamer." Ethan gave a weak nod. "I guess." She handed him a towel. "We'll need to run a few tests. You're leaking astral residue." "Leaking what?" "Don't worry," she said, smiling faintly. "You'll understand after the nightmares start talking back." Ethan swallowed. "You're all insane." Reed crossed his arms. "Insane is what keeps us alive." They led him deeper into the facility, past rusted steel doors, through corridors lined with photographs of people without faces. Hundreds of them. Some looked decades old. "Victims?" Ethan asked. Riley nodded. "And witnesses. Everyone who's ever seen it long enough to remember." At the far end, they reached a chamber surrounded by salt lines and lit candles. On a table sat a cassette recorder and a single Polaroid photo face down. Dr. Park gestured to the chair in the center. Sit. Ethan hesitated, then Saturday. She pressed record on the cassette. Test 47C, subject, Ethan Harper. Time, 4:12 a.m. She turned to him. Tell me what you remember before waking up in the bathtub. Ethan closed his eyes. The image came back instantly, the woman in the yellow raincoat, standing in the forest, whispering through cracked lips, "It's behind you." When he opened his eyes, Dr. Park was staring at him. Hard. Don't ever repeat that phrase again, she said. It's one of its summoning triggers. Reed leaned in. You said she was screaming. Did you hear her name? Ethan shook his head. No. Just something tapping. Like claws on glass. Riley's expression darkened. It's testing him. What does that mean? Ethan asked. Reed's voice dropped to a whisper. It means it already knows where he is. Rain hammered the steel roof of the warehouse like gunfire. Somewhere deep in the ventilation ducts, something small was scurrying, too fast for a rat, too deliberate for a machine. Ethan sat in the observation chamber, still wearing the damp shirt from his apartment, while Dr. Park circled him like a scientist examining a dangerous animal. On the table lay a set of yellow documents stamped Division 13 classified, next to a Polaroid camera, a cassette tape labeled the rules, and a thin surgical blade sealed in plastic. Riley leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You've got 48 hours to learn how to survive, she said. After that, we throw you back into the dark. Ethan frowned. That's your idea of reassurance. Reed entered, carrying a box of analog monitors and cables. His expression was stone. No one's reassuring anyone. We're training you because you're bait that dreams. Bait? Ethan's laugh cracked. You dragged me out of my apartment, nearly got me killed, and now I'm bait. Reed set the box down. The Faceless follows resonance. You dream of it, it listens. You wake, it moves. You resist, it hunts harder. The only way to stop it is to control the connection before it controls you. Dr. Park pressed play on the cassette recorder. A man's voice, calm and clinical, began to speak through the hiss. Division 13 Protocol, Containment of Subject F0, codename the Faceless. Rule 1, always wear a mask before the third scratching. Rule 2, never speak a victim's true name after 9 p.m. Rule 3, if your reflection loses its face, bleed. Blood anchors the soul. Rule 4, never destroy its image, each photograph is a prison. Rule 5, if it whispers your name, you must not answer. Silence keeps you human. The tape clicked off. Silence stretched thin. Ethan looked between them. You actually live by this. Riley's scar caught the light as she tilted her head. Everyone who didn't follow the rules is hanging on that wall. She nodded toward a corridor lined with framed photos, each one showing a person with blurred skin where a face should be. Dr. Park handed Ethan the Polaroid. Take a picture of yourself, she said softly. He hesitated. Why? Because once it starts appearing in mirrors, the only safe way to look at your own face is through a chemical print. Ethan raised the camera and clicked the shutter. The picture slid out, slowly developing. His heart raced as his own outline took shape, his hair, his shirt, his eyes. Then, before the image could finish, the face began to smudge itself away. The ink seemed to crawl, erasing features until only blank skin remained. Dr. Park exhaled. It's already linked. We'll have to move faster. Training day 1. They led Ethan into a room that looked like a cross between a chapel and a bunker, walls covered with chalk sigils, candles flickering beneath vents that dripped condensation. In the center, a mannequin wore a cracked porcelain mask, its surface carved with a spiral pattern. This is what you wear when the scratching begins, Riley said. The mask doesn't protect you, it confuses it. The Faceless feeds on recognition. If it can't tell where your eyes are, it hesitates. Ethan reached out to touch the porcelain, but Riley caught his wrist. Never touch the spiral directly. It remembers skin. He drew his hand back, uneasy. How many people have used this? Riley's eyes flicked to the floor. Too many. Reed entered, carrying a revolver. He handed it to Mason Cole, who had just arrived, a tall, broad man with a military bearing and a face carved from stone. Mason checked the cylinder, loaded 6 rounds of silver-tipped bullets, and looked at Ethan with something between pity and annoyance. So this is the dreamer, Mason said. He doesn't look like much. Neither did the last one, Riley muttered. Mason smirked. Yeah, and I had to burn half a forest to keep his corpse from walking back here. Ethan swallowed. You people really know how to make someone feel welcome. Reed ignored them. Mason will handle the perimeter when we return to the cabin. For now, Ethan learns the rights. Rights? Ethan asked. Dr. Park placed the surgical blade on a small tray in front of him. The Faceless exists halfway between thought and matter. Pain keeps you real. If you start seeing shadows moving behind your own reflection, cut yourself. Let the blood fall. It's not superstition, it's physics. Ethan stared at the blade. And if I don't? Then you'll keep bleeding in your dreams, she said. Until you stop waking up. That night, Ethan sat alone in a small cot near the end of the bunker. A single bulb swung overhead, casting dizzy spirals of light on the wall. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the scratching. Once. Twice. A pause. His heart froze. Third scratch. He shot upright, fumbling for the porcelain mask Riley had left by the bed. He strapped it on just as the light flickered out completely. In the darkness, the sound of breathing filled the room, wet, close, wrong. He whispered, Riley. Silence. Then, a voice behind him, not hers, not human. A sound like air escaping flesh. Why do you wear its face? Ethan spun around, blind. The air thickened, humid like a grave. He stumbled toward the door, but the floor beneath his feet felt soft, sinking, like stepping on something alive. He ripped the mask off, gasping. The lights flared back on. The room was empty. But on the wall above his cot, something new had been written in dripping black ink. I see you when you close your eyes. Morning briefing. Ethan burst into the command room, still shaking. Riley and Reed were already there, studying old VHS footage projected on a screen, grainy surveillance of a cabin in the middle of the forest. The timestamp read October 3, 1989. The footage showed a group of agents standing in a circle, performing a ritual with salt lines and chanting in Latin. Then the camera shook violently. One by one, their faces began to vanish. Reed froze the frame. That was the first team to enter the cabin. Division 13's original unit. Only one of us walked out. Riley nodded toward him. Captain Reed. Ethan turned to him. You saw it. Reed's expression darkened. Saw it. Heard it. Felt it peel the air apart. He tapped his temple. It leaves something behind when it looks at you. A mark. I still hear its heartbeat every time I close my eyes. Mason entered, slamming a folder on the table. Perimeter's clear. But something's wrong with the audio line. The tape keeps looping the same phrase. He played it. Static hissed through the speakers. Then a voice, faint, wet, and wrong, murmured. Don't forget your face. Ethan's stomach dropped. That's what it said last night. Dr. Park looked at him sharply. Then it's crossed the threshold. It can reach you awake now. Reed stood. We move at dusk. The longer we wait, the stronger it becomes. The cabin's pulling him back. Riley's hand twitched toward her gun. Captain, the last time we went there, we lost 5 agents. I won't watch it happen again. Reed's gaze was steady. You won't. Because this time, we are not going there to survive. Later that afternoon, the rain turned to fog thick as smoke. Ethan followed Riley to the armory, an underground chamber lit by oil lamps. Every weapon looked decades old. Knives with runes carved into the blades, salt canisters, analog radios buzzing faintly. Riley handed him a small flask filled with dark red liquid. Blood of the 99. Mixed from everyone who died inside the cabin. You'll need it. Ethan recoiled. That's disgusting. It's salvation, she said. The Faceless feeds on unanchored souls. Blood ties it down. Without it, you'll just be another mask on its wall. She paused, studying him. You really don't remember any of your dreams before last week, do you? Ethan frowned. No. Why? Because the first sign of infection isn't nightmares. It's forgetting them. She turned and walked out, leaving him alone with the weight of that thought. That night, as the team prepared to move, Ethan caught his reflection in one of the steel panels. For a moment, he swore his reflection smiled, but he hadn't. He blinked, and the face was his again. But deep in the reflection's eyes, something pale was waiting. Watching. He whispered to himself, no face left. And somewhere behind the metal, the scratching began again. Once. Twice. Pause. Then, softly, almost tenderly. The rain hadn't stopped in 48 hours. By the time the convoy left Tacoma, the world had turned to grayscale. The forest swallowed the last traces of city light, as the SUV climbed into the Olympic foothills. Every tree looked like a silhouette of something dying. Inside the vehicle, no one spoke. The windshield wipers beat in rhythm with Ethan's pulse. He sat between Riley and Dr. Park, clutching the porcelain mask on his lap like a lifeline. Reed drove, silent as stone. Mason followed in another car behind them, his headlights little more than ghosts in the mist. Are we really going back there? Ethan finally asked. Riley didn't look at him. We never really left. Dr. Park murmured, the cabin isn't a place. It's a wound. It opens whenever someone calls it. Ethan's grip tightened. And we are calling it now. Reed's eyes stayed on the road. We are answering it. They reached the forest boundary just after midnight. The rain had turned to fog thick as breath. Every sound was muffled except the distant hum of static that seemed to bleed from nowhere. Reed parked the SUV and killed the lights. From here, we walk. No electronics beyond this point. He handed each of them a small analog headset and an oil lantern. Once the static starts talking, we are close. Mason shouldered his rifle, checked the silver rounds. What's the play? Standard triangulation, Reed said. 3 points around the perimeter, 1 inside. Ethan stays in the middle. He's the beacon. Ethan's throat tightened. Beacon for what? Dr. Park's voice was calm. For what's left of its hunger. The forest floor was slick with mud and moss. Ethan followed Riley through the trees, the lantern glow casting trembling halos around them. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. Even the rain stopped falling here. After an hour of walking, the air grew heavier, pressurized, like the world itself was holding its breath. Then Ethan saw it. Through the fog, half hidden beneath vines and rot, stood the cabin. The roof sagged inward. The wood was blackened as if struck by lightning a century ago. Yet the windows, those tiny, square eyes, were spotless. Riley raised her rifle. "Stay close." Reed's voice crackled softly through the analog headset. Team 2 in position. Perimeter secured. "Mason, hold the east flank." Mason's voice came back low and steady. "Copy." "East clear, wait. Something's moving out here." Static. Then, silence. "Cole?" Reed asked. "Nothing." Dr. Park's voice, signal interference. "It's near." The air around them pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat under the soil. Ethan felt his stomach twist. "We shouldn't be here." Riley glanced at him. Too late for that. They reached the porch. Every board groaned as they stepped on it, as though the house recognized them. Ethan noticed something nailed to the door, an old Polaroid photo, its surface smeared with mud. He wiped it with his sleeve. It was a picture of Lucas Grant. Ethan froze. "He was one of you, wasn't he?" Riley nodded grimly. 3 years ago. He went missing during the last containment attempt. Reed's voice came through the headset again, faint and distorted. "He didn't go missing. We left him." Inside, the cabin smelled like wet stone and decay. Every step echoed too long, as if the walls were hollow. The lantern light flickered, casting shapes that didn't quite match their owners. Dr. Park began setting up her ritual kit on the floor, salt lines, candles, a small iron bell etched with sigils. She spoke softly, almost chanting. "We draw 3 rings. 1 for sound. 1 for sight. 1 for the soul." Ethan watched her pour salt in spirals around them. "What happens if the rings break?" She didn't look up. "Then the space folds." He frowned. "Folds? Like paper," she said. "And we fall through." Riley swept the second floor while Ethan explored the main hall, his lantern trembling in his hand. Dust motes hung frozen in the air. There were claw marks on the wallpaper, long and uneven, as though someone had tried to climb the walls. At the far end of the hall was a door with a heavy padlock, rusted but intact. A faint sound came from behind it, wet breathing. "Riley," he whispered into the headset. "There's something." The padlock snapped open by itself. Ethan stepped back, heart pounding. The door creaked open an inch, then another. The smell that poured out was old blood and mold. He raised his lantern. The light touched a shape hanging from the ceiling. A man. Upside down. Skin gray, eyes and mouth sewn shut with wire. His chest rose faintly, he was alive. Ethan stumbled backward, while rising. "Riley." "Reed?" I think it's him." Riley rushed in, rifle raised. When her light hit the body, her face went pale. "Lucas." Dr. Park appeared in the doorway, whispering a prayer in Korean. "Dear God." Reed's voice crackled through the headset. "Don't touch him. He's the anchor. If you disturb." Too late. Ethan had already reached out. His fingers brushed Lucas's arm. Instantly, the world flipped. The cabin dissolved into darkness, replaced by flashes, like film frames burned mid-reel. Riley screaming. The floor splitting. Blood on walls. The Faceless standing behind her, its featureless head turning toward him. Then silence. He blinked, and he was back in the cabin. Riley was kneeling beside him, shaking him. "Ethan." "What happened?" He gasped for air. "I saw, 10 seconds ahead. You die." Her expression hardened. "Don't say that. I'm not joking. Every time I touch him, I see the future, and in every one, you die." Riley stared at Lucas's lifeless form. "Then don't touch him again." Dr. Park's voice trembled. It's not foresight. It's contagion. Lucas is a conduit, the Faceless left fragments of itself inside him. When you touched him, you linked. Ethan's hands shook. Linked how? Before she could answer, every candle in the room snuffed out. Darkness swallowed them whole. Then came the sound. A slow dragging, like bare feet on wood. Riley raised her gun. Positions. Something moved in the hall. The lantern flickered, and for an instant, Ethan saw it. A pale figure standing in the doorway, head tilted too far to one side. No eyes. No mouth. Only smooth, stretched skin that quivered as it breathed. Riley fired. The bullet struck its chest. No reaction. It turned toward Ethan, though it had no face to turn. And somehow, he felt it smiling. Dr. Park screamed, "The ring, keep it intact." Ethan stumbled backward, kicking the salt line. The circle broke. The air imploded. The walls rippled like water. Every reflection in the room, window glass, lantern metal, even their eyes, started to bleed light. Riley grabbed Ethan by the collar and dragged him toward the stairs. Move. Move. They crashed through the second floor, as the cabin groaned like it was alive. Shadows crawled across the ceiling, stretching like veins. "Where's Mason?" Riley shouted into the headset. Static. Then. Mason's voice, barely audible, "Don't, come back, it's in." Screaming. The line cut. Reed's voice followed. "Team 2 down. Evacuate now." Ethan reached the top landing, and froze. At the end of the hallway, through the cracked door of a bedroom, he saw a mirror. And in that mirror, himself, standing perfectly still. Only, his reflection wasn't wearing the mask anymore. And the reflection raised its hand first. The next thing Ethan knew, he was on the ground outside, the cabin burning behind them. Reed was dragging him through the mud while Riley fired into the tree line. The fog churned like something alive. What happened?" Ethan stammered. "You broke the circle," Riley shouted. "You let it in." Dr. Park stumbled after them, clutching her chest. "It's not contained, it's traveling." Behind them, the cabin collapsed inward with a scream that wasn't made by wood or fire. The sound vibrated through the trees, low and endless, like breath being drawn in reverse. Then, silence. Reed finally stopped, panting. "Is everyone accounted for?" "Mason's gone," Riley said. "We lost him." Dr. Park looked up, face pale. "Not lost. Taken." Reed turned to Ethan. "You touched Lucas. That means it knows you now. From this moment on, you dream for it." Ethan's voice trembled. "What does that mean?" "It means," Reed said, "every time you close your eyes, it gets stronger." They didn't speak again until dawn. The fire behind them had burned itself into nothing but ash. As the first light broke through the fog, Ethan noticed something carved into his forearm, thin, almost invisible lines, forming letters. He leaned closer. The words were faint but clear. "IT wants you to come home." He looked up at the smoking ruins. Somewhere beneath the ash, something moved, like a hand pressing up from the earth. And for the first time, Ethan realized the cabin hadn't burned down. It was breathing. Rain lashed against the windows of the Capitol Hill apartment like shards of broken glass. The whole city outside looked drowned, streetlights bleeding orange halos through the fog, car tires hissing on slick asphalt, the dull pulse of a world that refused to sleep. Ethan Harper hadn't slept in 36 hours. His computer screen still flickered with lines of code that no longer made sense. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. He rubbed his temples. His head ached in a strange, metallic rhythm. And then, he heard it again. A wet drip. Another. Then another. He turned toward the bathroom. The door was half closed, steam curling from the crack at the top. But he hadn't showered. Not again, he muttered. Ethan rose from his chair, each step sinking into the carpet with a soft squelch. He pushed the door open. The light flickered, humming like a dying insect. Inside the tub, crimson swirled through the water. Thick. Heavy. Real. The scent of iron filled his lungs. Blood? But not his. His hands trembled. The water was cold, too cold. He backed away. In the mirror above the sink, he caught movement. Something pale glided across the fogged glass from behind his reflection. A hand, long, boneless fingers, pressing against the other side. The print it left was faceless, like someone had pressed skin, not flesh. Ethan froze. His heart thudded so hard he could hear it in his teeth. The thing behind the mirror began to wipe the steam away, revealing darkness instead of the wall. A void stared back. He stumbled, hitting the counter, and the sound broke the trance. The mirror returned to normal. Only his reflection looked back, wide-eyed, shaking, and very much human. Then came the knock. 3 sharp bangs. He turned. The front door. The knock came again, harder this time. Mr. Harper. Division 13. The voice was calm, female, professional. Ethan hesitated. Division what? The door burst open. A woman in tactical gear stepped through, rain dripping from her hair. Her eyes, grey and sharp, scanned the room like she'd done this 100 times before. Behind her, an older man followed, trench coat soaked through. Riley, the man said, he's bleeding. Ethan looked down. There was blood smeared across his wrists, streaked over his shirt. No, it's not mine, he said quickly. It's not. Sit down, Riley ordered. She didn't point her weapon, but the way she spoke made it clear she didn't need to. The older man, Captain Daniel Reed, knelt by the tub, glancing at the crimson water. He didn't flinch. Same temperature, he muttered. Same volume. Same as what? Ethan demanded. Reed met his eyes. The last victim. Something in Ethan's stomach dropped. Riley moved closer, inspecting the bathroom mirror. She touched the edge with her gloved hand. No sign of breach, she said. Reed nodded. Not physical, at least. Ethan's voice cracked. Who are you people? Riley looked at him like he'd just asked where the sky went. Division 13. You were flagged 3 hours ago, after a neural pattern spike. You're coming with us. I didn't do anything. That's exactly the problem, Reed said quietly. You dreamed it. The extraction. They moved fast. Ethan barely had time to grab his jacket before they led him through the hallway. The air outside hit cold and sharp against his face. Unmarked black sedan, windows tinted. As the car pulled away, Ethan caught one last glimpse of his apartment building through the rain. The lights on his floor flickered twice. Then, darkness. Riley sat beside him, scanning something on a tablet. Her neck bore a faint scar, a curved slash that ran just under her jawline. He tried to ignore the metallic smell that still clung to his skin. What do you mean I dreamed it? He asked. You're what we call a sensitive, she said without looking up. You don't just dream, you receive. Receive what? Echoes, Reed answered from the front seat. Trauma signatures left behind by contact with entities like the one in your bathroom. We track them through people like you. Ethan laughed nervously. Entities. Okay. Sure. And you work for some government ghost hunting agency. Riley's lips twitched. Close enough. The windshield wipers beat a slow, rhythmic pattern. For a moment, Ethan swore the rain wasn't hitting glass, it was tapping back. Division 13. The car wound through the docks of Tacoma, stopping before an abandoned warehouse, the kind that smelled of rust and ocean rot. They led him inside, down a stairwell hidden beneath a cracked concrete floor. Below, fluorescent lights buzzed weakly. The underground facility looked frozen in time, machines with analog dials, cathode monitors, reel-to-reel recorders humming softly. Reed turned to him. Electromagnetic interference. Digital systems don't last long down here. Because of what? That thing. Riley didn't answer. She opened a steel door. Inside, a room lined with faded photos, people without faces, their features blurred like overexposed film. Dr. Lena Park was waiting there. Her white coat was streaked with something dark near the cuffs. She held an old, leather-bound book in one hand. Its pages were red. "You brought him," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Reed nodded. He saw it. Dr. Park studied Ethan's face, eyes tracing invisible lines. "He's stronger than the last one." "Stronger?" Ethan echoed. She gestured for him to sit. "Tell me about the dream." "The dream?" Ethan hesitated, but something in her calm tone loosened his tongue. "There was a forest. I heard someone calling my name, but it wasn't my voice. Then I saw a cabin, old, rotting. Inside, there was this man on the floor. His face was gone. Not torn off, just erased. Smooth." He paused, trembling. "And when I looked closer, his hand moved. He pointed at me. Then I woke up, in the bathtub." Dr. Park's expression darkened. "Did you say a name?" "Out loud." He blinked. "I don't remember." Reed exchanged a quick glance with Riley. "We need to move fast. It's feeding cycles early." Ethan frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" Riley leaned in. "It means if you really did dream a victim, it's already closer than we want it to be." Something in the air changed then, an almost inaudible shift. The lights dimmed, flickered. Ethan's reflection in the one-way glass behind them didn't move when he did. Dr. Park's voice went cold. "He's marked." Reed's hand went for his weapon. "Shut it down." "Now?" Riley hit a switch. The room plunged into red emergency light. Somewhere distant, alarms wailed. Ethan turned toward the glass. His reflection smiled back, slowly, unnaturally. And the face staring from the mirror wasn't his anymore. The concrete walls of Division 13's underground base sweated moisture from the rain seeping through the docks above. The hum of analog machines filled the space with a constant low vibration, like a pulse buried in the earth. Ethan Harper hadn't seen sunlight in 2 days. He'd stopped asking when he could go home. The place had no windows, no clocks, and only one rule written in large red letters above the corridor. If you see your reflection move first, run. Orientation. They called it orientation, but it felt more like an interrogation. Riley Morgan stood in front of him, hands clasped behind her back, while Captain Reed sat at the metal table, cigarette smoke curling toward the ceiling vent. Reed's voice was low and graveled. "You're sensitive, Ethan. You pick up what most people can't, echoes of entities that shouldn't exist. Division 13 finds people like you and teaches them how to stay alive long enough to help us hunt them." Ethan scoffed. "So I'm bait?" Riley's expression didn't change. "You're a sensor. We use your connection to track the thing before it kills again." "The Faceless," Reed said quietly. "That's what we call it. But don't say the name more than once in a night." Ethan frowned. "Why not?" Riley leaned forward. "Because it listens. Rule 1, the mask. A tech named Voss entered the room carrying a small black case. Inside lay a featureless mask, made of dull silver polymer. The surface was perfectly smooth, like liquid mercury. Reed gestured to it. You wear this the moment you hear the scratching sound, 3 times against any surface. That's your warning. Ethan picked it up. The metal felt cold, almost alive. What happens if I don't? You won't die, Riley said. Not immediately. Reed exhaled smoke. It hunts faces. The mask breaks recognition. It can't lock onto you if it can't see who you are. Ethan tried to hand it back, but Reed shook his head. It's yours now. Rule 2, never speak the dead. The training room was dimly lit, its walls lined with photographs, hundreds of them. Each face blurred beyond recognition. Riley walked beside Ethan as they passed. These were all agents. We call them lost. They broke Rule 2. Ethan glanced at her. Which is? She stopped, meeting his gaze. After 9 p.m., you don't speak the real name of anyone who's died from contact. Not even a whisper. Not even in your head. He frowned. You think it can read thoughts? She smirked. I don't think. I know. They stopped before one photo pinned near the end. The label read, Agent L. Grant. The image showed a man's silhouette, no eyes, no mouth. Just pale skin. Lucas Grant, she said softly. My old partner. Ethan remembered the name from their first night. You said he was taken. Riley nodded. 3 years ago. The Faceless didn't kill him. It kept him. That's worse. Something flickered behind her expression, grief, rage, and fear stitched together. Then she turned and walked away. Rule 3, the blood anchor. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The cot in his quarters was hard, the air too still. He turned on the small desk lamp. Its bulb buzzed faintly, casting a warm halo over the floor. There was a mirror on the wall, small, circular, and cracked down the middle. Someone had taped a paper over it, scrawled in marker. If you see your shadow's face disappear, cut the hand. He didn't understand. Until he heard it. A faint scratch against the wall. Then another. Then. Scratch. 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 His heart froze. He counted the 3. Rule 1, the mask. He grabbed the silver mask from the nightstand and pressed it over his face. The air inside turned cold, almost wet. He tried to breathe evenly. Silence. Then, a whisper, right behind him. Ethan. He turned slowly. Nothing there. The mirror still covered. He reached for the tape, then stopped. His reflection was breathing, even though he wasn't. The face in the mirror had no eyes. Its mouth twitched open, like skin stretching over bone. He tore his hand away. This isn't real. The light bulb shattered. The room went black. He remembered Riley's voice, if you see your shadow's face disappear, cut the hand. He grabbed the knife from his boot and drew a thin line across his palm. Blood fell onto the concrete floor. The whisper stopped instantly. The temperature rose again. When he looked back at the mirror, his reflection had returned. Normal. Terrified. Human. The door slammed open. Riley rushed in, weapon raised. Did you hear it? She demanded. Ethan nodded, clutching his bleeding hand. It said my name. Riley cursed under her breath. It's probing. You're marked deeper than we thought. Reed appeared behind her, pale and sweating. Get him to Dr. Park. We're running out of time. Dr. Park's ritual. Dr. Lena Park's lab looked more like a chapel than a clinic, candles burning beside old computer monitors, Latin text carved into the steel beams. She motioned for Ethan to sit, then pressed her fingers to his temples. Her touch was icy. "You heard it," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Good. That means it hasn't taken your tongue yet." He stared at her. "What the hell does that mean?" "Each victim loses something first," she said, moving around him, tracing symbols on the floor with chalk mixed with his blood. "Some lose their faces. Some their voices. Some their memories." She looked up. "You dream. That makes you valuable. It also makes you food." Reed stepped inside the circle, his voice a low growl. "Can you block it?" Dr. Park hesitated. "Not completely. But we can delay the harvest." She opened her blood-stained book and began to chant in a language Ethan didn't recognize. The lights dimmed. The smell of ozone filled the air. Ethan's vision blurred. He saw flashes, trees, fog, a cabin door creaking open. A man hanging upside down, his mouth sealed with wire. Then, his own face, smooth and blank, staring back from the dark. He gasped and jerked awake. Dr. Park stepped back, trembling. "It's deeper than I thought," she whispered. "It's already feeding." Reed slammed his fist on the table. "Then we stop it." Dr. Park shook her head. "No. You can't stop it. You can only confuse it. That's what the rules are for." Ethan's breathing grew erratic. "How long do I have?" She looked at him with pity. "Until it remembers your name." The file. Later that night, Ethan wandered into the records room, his curiosity gnawing at the fear. The air smelled of paper, dust, and old coffee. He flicked through folders until he found one marked Project Erasure. He opened it. Inside were photographs, each one showing people mid-transformation, faces half gone, skin stretched like melted wax. And then one photo froze him. It was him. Standing in front of the same bathroom mirror. Blood in the tub. Dated 3 days before he ever saw it happen. Looking for something. Riley's voice made him jump. She leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. He held up the photo. "What is this?" "Precognition anomaly," she said. "The Faceless bends time around its chosen mark. We call them echo loops. You live the same death again and again until it finds you." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. "So I'm already dead?" Riley's jaw tightened. "Not yet. But it's close." She took the folder gently from his hands. "Listen to me, Ethan. You follow the rules, you might survive long enough for us to kill it." He stared at her, voice trembling. "You've killed it before." Riley hesitated. "No one ever has. But we've made it run." A long silence filled the room, broken only by the dripping of rain through a vent. Riley finally said, almost to herself, "Lucas thought he could save them all. He didn't. Don't make the same mistake." Ethan swallowed hard. "What mistake?" She looked at him, eyes hollow, tired. He looked at its face. The rain never stopped in Washington. It poured over the windshield in liquid curtains as Riley drove through the endless forest, headlights cutting pale tunnels through the fog. Ethan sat in the passenger seat, mask resting in his lap. The road wound deeper into the Olympic National Park, a black artery leading straight into the wilderness. "You realize Reed will have us both court-martialed for this," Riley said, eyes on the road. Ethan stared out the window. "Then why are you doing it?" Her lips twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Because I buried too many people without faces. Lucas deserves better than that." The forbidden site. They reached the old trailhead at dawn. The rain had thinned to mist, the kind that clung to skin like breath. The forest towered around them, ancient cedars and ferns dripping with water, the air dense with decay and quiet. The path to the cabin wasn't marked, but Riley didn't need a map. She moved like she'd been here before, because she had. Ethan followed, his boots sinking into mud. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until even the birds refused to sing. Finally, the cabin appeared through the fog, a silhouette of rot and ruin. Its roof sagged, its windows boarded, its door barely hanging by its hinges. Ethan felt it immediately, a pressure behind his eyes, like something invisible pressing against his skull. "It's awake," Riley said. "The entrance." The door creaked open on its own. The smell hit them first, wet wood, old blood, and something else, formaldehyde. Inside, dust hung like fog in the flashlight beams. Symbols carved into the walls glowed faintly when the light passed over them, looping spirals that seemed to shift shape when not watched. Riley checked her weapon. "Don't touch anything. Don't say anything you don't have to." Ethan nodded, but his mind was already drifting. The house hummed, low and resonant, like a throat trying to remember how to speak. Down the hall, a door thudded once. They froze. Riley raised her gun and moved forward, each step precise. Ethan followed, pulse hammering in his throat. The door at the end of the hall was sealed with wire. The smell behind it was unbearable. She cut the wire. The door swung open. The basement. The stairs creaked under their weight as they descended into darkness. The air grew thick, wet. A faint metallic drip echoed somewhere ahead. At the bottom, they found him. Lucas Grant hung upside down from the ceiling, wrists bound with barbed wire, eyes and mouth sewn shut with rusted metal thread. His skin was pale, bluish, and stretched too tight, like a puppet that had forgotten it was once human. Ethan gagged, stepping back. "Jesus Christ!" Riley's gun lowered. Her voice broke for the first time. "Lucas?" The body twitched. The head turned slightly toward her voice. A strangled sound leaked through the stitched mouth, not a scream, not a groan. A plea. Riley's breath hitched. She stepped closer. "It's me. It's Riley." Ethan felt something clawing behind his eyes. The air shimmered, and suddenly the room seemed to shift, as though the basement wasn't just one room, but 1,000 overlapping versions, flickering like old film. He reached out. His fingers brushed Lucas's shoulder. Instantly. Flash. He was no longer in the basement. He was outside, rain pouring, trees screaming in the wind. He saw Riley kneeling on the ground, blood running down her neck. And above her, a tall, faceless silhouette bending low, its skin rippling like milk. Then, darkness. Ethan gasped and yanked his hand back. The vision shattered. He was back in the basement, heart pounding, Lucas still dangling above him. Riley turned. "What happened?" Ethan shook his head. "I saw something, 10 seconds from now." Lucas began to convulse violently, the wires cutting into his flesh. The sound of tearing skin filled the air. Riley screamed, "Get back!" But it was too late. The stitches across Lucas's mouth snapped open, blood pouring down his face. From within came a single word, whispered like wind over glass. "Run!" The awakening. The lights went out. Something moved in the dark, tall, slow, deliberate. The boards above their heads groaned under invisible weight. Riley grabbed Ethan and dragged him behind a support beam. "Mask. Now?" He fumbled with the silver mask, pressing it over his face just as a long, pale arm reached through the shadows where he'd been standing. It stopped midair, fingers twitching, searching. Then it retracted. Ethan's lungs burned. He didn't dare breathe. Through the crack between boards, he saw it. The Faceless. It stood almost 9 feet tall, its skin smooth and colorless, stretched too tight over its bones. Its head was bald, featureless, no eyes, no mouth, no nose, yet somehow, it looked at them. The air vibrated with a deep, inhuman hum. Ethan felt it in his teeth, in his skull, in his heartbeat. Riley raised her gun and fired 3 rounds. Each shot tore through the thing's chest, but no blood spilled, no sound. It simply turned, slowly, as if curious. "Move," she shouted, grabbing Ethan. They ran up the stairs, the floorboards collapsing behind them. The escape. They burst through the front door into the rain. The forest seemed to twist around them, trees bending in directions that shouldn't exist. Behind them, the cabin breathed, the walls expanding and contracting like lungs. Ethan tripped, falling face first into the mud. His mask cracked. He could feel the presence behind him, the air pulling away like the vacuum of a deep sea. Riley yanked him up. "Don't look back." But he did. The cabin's doorway pulsed with light. Inside, he saw Lucas again, hanging still, eyes now open and glowing white. His mouth moved soundlessly. Riley fired another burst. "Run!" They tore through the trees until the forest thinned, until the headlights of their car cut through the fog ahead. They dove inside. Riley slammed the doors, started the engine, and floored it. For a moment, nothing chased them. Then, from the tree line behind, dozens of hands reached out, pale, grasping, stretching across the mud like roots searching for soil. The rear window spider-webbed as something slammed against it from outside. Ethan screamed. The car fishtailed on the slick road, but didn't stop until the highway lights of Tacoma came into view. Only then did Riley slow down, panting, knuckles white on the wheel. Ethan tore off the broken mask, gasping for air. "It knew my name." Riley didn't look at him. They always do. Aftermath. Back at Division 13, alarms blared the moment they entered. Reed stormed into the debriefing room, fury in his eyes. "What the hell did you do?" he roared. Riley threw the cracked mask on the table. "We found Lucas." Reed froze. "Alive?" Ethan nodded weakly. "If you can call it that." Reed looked at Dr. Park, who stood pale in the doorway. "It's begun, then." Dr. Park whispered, "The binding's broken. The Faceless isn't confined to the cabin anymore." Ethan's blood ran cold. "You mean it can come here?" Riley's jaw tightened. "It already has." The reflection. Hours later, Ethan stood alone in the washroom, staring at the cracked mirror above the sink. The overhead lights flickered. Behind his reflection, he saw movement, just a blur at first, then the faint outline of Lucas Grant, mouth still stitched, eyes burning white. Lucas raised a trembling hand, pointing at Ethan through the glass. And then his voice came, muffled but clear, echoing inside Ethan's skull. "Every time you dream, it grows stronger." The glass shivered. Ethan backed away, heart hammering. From the hallway, he heard Riley shouting orders, Reed barking into the intercom. But all of it felt distant, muffled, drowned beneath a sound only Ethan could hear. A slow, deliberate scratch on the inside of the mirror. Scratch. 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 He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then, from behind the glass, a whisper. His own voice, speaking back to him. "You shouldn't have looked." Part 2. The storm rolled in at midnight. Thunder shook the reinforced glass of Division 13's underground facility. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Agent Reed stood in the operations room, eyes on the central monitor. The security feeds showed corridors, labs, holding cells. Every screen hummed with static for half a second before clearing. That was when he noticed it, a shape on camera 4. "Zoom in," he ordered. The technician hesitated. "Sir, it's inside corridor C." But no one's logged movement there. Reed leaned closer. The image sharpened, a tall, pale silhouette, standing motionless in the dark. Then the feed cut to black. Containment protocol. Emergency lights pulsed red. Reed grabbed the intercom MIC. All teams, lockdown initiated. Containment breach in C-Wing. Full blackout protocol. Masks on. Doors slammed shut across the compound. Hydraulic locks hissed into place. Riley strapped on her combat mask, loading her rifle. You think it followed us back? Reed didn't answer. His jaw tightened. You brought a contagion we don't understand into a secure site. It was never supposed to leave the forest. Ethan, pale and exhausted, stood near the observation glass. His reflection seemed to ripple faintly, just enough for Riley to notice. Hey, she said. You okay? He didn't answer at first. Then softly, it's inside me, isn't it? No one replied. The power fails. The overhead lights died. A low hum replaced them, the sound of backup generators struggling to kick in. In the dark, something moved. A metallic clang echoed from the far corridor. Then another. Riley aimed down her sight line. Reed, something's crawling inside the vents. They heard it, a dragging, scraping rhythm, like nails on steel. Then the vents above them bulged outward. Reed barked down. The vent cover exploded open as a flood of black mist poured out, thick and sentient, slithering across the ceiling. Within it, glimpses, hands, faces, shifting bone. Ethan stumbled back, clutching his head. It's trying to. The mist split into two directions, one part disappearing down the hall, the other curling toward the control room door. Riley fired, the rounds slicing through vapor. Each bullet tore brief holes in the mist, revealing flashes of white beneath, flesh. Then, silence. The screaming corridor. Security lights flickered back on, bathing the hall in red. The team moved out, weapons raised. Every surface was covered in a thin, wet film, like condensation, but thicker, alive. They reached Corridor C. The smell hit them first, copper, ozone, and rot. Bodies lay scattered, agents twisted into impossible shapes, their faces stretched smooth and featureless. Their ID tags still hung from their necks. Riley's hand trembled. Oh my God. Reed forced himself forward. Check for survivors. Ethan crouched beside one of the corpses. The man's mask was fused to his skin. Through the crack between visor and cheek, something pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. He touched it. Instantly, flash. A woman screaming in a white corridor. Hands slamming glass. A voice whispering through the intercom, "Let me wear your face." Ethan jerked back. His nose was bleeding. Riley grabbed him. What did you see? He swallowed. They are not dead. Not yet. It's consuming them. From the inside out. Command collapse. They reached the main hub. The power grid flickered violently, screens flashing diagnostic code. Dr. Park was there, trembling, clutching a tablet. It's adapting, she stammered. It's using the facility's neural surveillance net, every sensor, every biometric feed. It knows where we are. Reed slammed a hand on the console. Shut it down. I can't, Park said, eyes wide. It's rewriting the access tree. Sir, it's learning human language. The intercom crackled. A voice came through, distorted, slow, like speech replayed through broken tape. Who, I? Everyone froze. Then, softer. Ethan. Ethan backed away from the speaker, his breathing shallow. It's inside the network. It knows me. Reed turned to Riley. Get him to containment now. Riley hesitated. If it's bonded to him. That's why he's going in. Reed's tone was final. Isolation chamber. The containment unit was built of reinforced glass and steel, a cube suspended in the middle of the observation chamber. Ethan stepped inside without protest. The door sealed behind him with a hiss. Riley watched through the glass as Dr. Park calibrated the monitoring equipment. Electrodes tracked Ethan's neural output, displayed as jagged waves across the screen. Reed crossed his arms. If the entity's linked to his cognition, we'll see it here first. The monitors flickered. Ethan looked up, eyes unfocused. I can hear it, he whispered. It's trying to show me something. Reed's voice came over the speaker. Ignore it, soldier. But Ethan wasn't listening. He reached toward the glass. His fingertips trembled, then froze. The glass beneath them warped outward, as though something inside the reflection was pressing back. Riley drew her gun. Reed, we need to. The reflection split open. The mirror thing. A pale hand burst from the glass, grabbing Ethan's wrist. He screamed, trying to pull away, but the reflection dragged harder. Riley fired. The bullet cracked the glass but didn't shatter it. Instead, ripples spread across the surface like water. From within, the Faceless began to emerge, slow, graceful, impossible. Its smooth head slid through the barrier, followed by a body that didn't cast a shadow. The room's lights dimmed to black. Only the monitors glowed, showing Ethan's vitals spiking off the charts. Reed shouted, "Seal the room." But it was too late. The Faceless stepped fully into the chamber, towering over Ethan. No eyes, no mouth, yet its blank face tilted, studying him. It reached out, touched his chest, and every screen in the control room exploded into static. Riley screamed, "Ethan!" Blackout. When the power returned, Ethan was standing alone. The glass was unbroken. The monitors read normal. But Ethan's eyes were black. Dr. Park whispered, "Oh God." Reed drew his pistol. "Don't move." Ethan looked at him, and smiled faintly. "You don't understand," he said, voice layered with two tones, his and something beneath. "It's not trying to kill us. It's trying to remember itself." Riley's finger tightened on the trigger. "What did it do to you?" Ethan tilted his head. "It showed me its first face. It was human. Once." The overhead lights began to hum, brighter and brighter until every fixture burned white. Ethan whispered, almost lovingly, "And it wants it back." The breach. Alarms screamed. The glass of the containment unit shattered outward. The Faceless, or what was left of it, erupted in a torrent of black vapor, engulfing the control room. The sound was deafening, like a chorus of voices singing backwards. Reed fired blindly into the smoke. Riley grabbed Park and dragged her toward the exit. But through the chaos, one voice rang clear, Ethan's, calling from within the storm. "If I don't stop it, it'll take everyone." Then, silence. The vapor thinned. The monitors flickered back to life. The chamber was empty. Ethan was gone. Reed stared into the static on the main screen. Somewhere deep within the feed, he thought he saw a face, not the Faceless, but Ethan's, eyes calm, mouth forming a single word. "Run." The alarms had stopped. That was what scared Riley most. The corridors of Division 13 were supposed to echo with mechanical hums, radio chatter, the constant white noise of machines older than she was. Now, silence. The silence meant it was listening. Riley tightened her grip on her rifle as she and Dr. Park crept through the auxiliary hallway, flashlights cutting narrow beams through the dark. Water dripped from the ventilation ducts, pooling on the floor like oil. Behind them, the emergency door to the control room had sealed, Reed's last command before the blackout. But even from here, Riley could smell burned flesh. "Lena," she whispered. "You said it hijacked the neural net. Can it hear us?" Dr. Park's voice trembled. "If it's still inside the network, yes. It could be inside the comms, the cameras, maybe even." A burst of static interrupted her. The intercom above their heads crackled to life. "Riley." They froze. It was Ethan's voice. Soft. Familiar. "You need to come back. I can help you now." Riley aimed her gun at the speaker. "That's not him." Dr. Park clutched the cross around her neck. "It's learning empathy patterns. It knows who you trust." The intercom clicked off. A heartbeat of silence. Then, faintly, from farther down the corridor, a whisper. "Riley." The same voice. But closer. Dead channels. They reached the auxiliary lab. The room was bathed in dim, amber light from emergency power. A row of analog monitors flickered along the wall, each one looping old Division 13 training footage, grainy reels of masked agents running drills, their faces blurred by static. Riley checked the door control. "Systems fried. We'll have to cut through maintenance." Dr. Park nodded, already typing commands into a handheld device. "If we reroute through the analog line, we can reach the lower exit by." She stopped. On the nearest monitor, the footage changed. Instead of agents training, the feed now showed the two of them, standing exactly as they were now, inside the same room. Only, behind them, in the reflection on the far glass panel, a figure stood. Pale. Too tall. No face. "Move." Riley shoved Park aside just as the glass exploded inward. Something slammed into the floor, not solid, but dense enough to shake the tiles. It was the Faceless, or a fragment of it, dripping like wax as it pulled itself upright. Riley fired twice, the rounds hissed through vapor, hitting nothing solid. Dr. Park screamed, "Run." They dove through the side corridor, as the room behind them imploded in a flash of white static. The air smelled like ozone and blood. The morgue. They stopped 3 floors down, in a section long abandoned, the morgue. Rows of sealed drawers lined the walls, each labeled with dates and case numbers. The air was freezing, damp with the metallic scent of preservation fluid. Riley slammed the door behind them and sealed it with a pipe. Dr. Park leaned against the wall, shaking. "It's not just killing. It's recording us. Mimicking behavior, learning emotions, speech, like an organism evolving inside a digital womb." Riley exhaled hard. "You're saying it's alive?" "No," Park said softly. "It's becoming human." Before Riley could respond, a faint tapping echoed from one of the body drawers. Once. Twice. Tap tap tap. Riley raised her weapon. "Back up." The drawer creaked open by itself. Inside lay an agent in a Division 13 uniform, eyes open, skin pale, Lucas Grant. His stitched mouth had been torn open. "Lucas," Riley whispered. He moved. Slowly, painfully, he sat up, metal stitches snapping one by one. His voice was a rasp, thick with blood. "It's inside the walls." Riley rushed forward, ignoring Dr. Park's plea to stay back. "Lucas, where's Ethan?" Lucas's head jerked toward her. His remaining eye rolled white. He opened the door. "It's not bound anymore." Then his voice changed, higher, distorted, Ethan's voice, bleeding through. "Riley, don't run from me." Lucas's mouth stretched wider than it should have, tearing at the cheeks until they split open. His skin began to bubble. Riley fired once, shattering his skull. The echo hung in the cold air. Dr. Park turned away, covering her mouth. Riley whispered, "He was already gone." "The network comes alive." They pressed deeper into the lower tunnels. The analog servers here were ancient, rows of spinning tape reels and humming cathode screens. They looked like the inside of a retro nightmare. The screens flickered, then lit up in unison. Dozens of faces appeared, Division 13 agents, old and new, all with blank, smooth skin. Dr. Park screamed. "It's projecting." The speakers filled with 100 overlapping voices, whispering the same phrase. "No face left, no face left, no face left." The lights began to pulse in rhythm with the words. Riley aimed her gun at the main console. "We kill the power, we kill the network." "How?" Park's fingers flew across the controls. "There's a manual fuse behind the analog core." "But..." "Do it." Park hesitated. "It's linked to the life support grid. We cut it, we kill everyone still alive upstairs." Riley's eyes hardened. "There's no one left alive." The pulse. The network began to breathe. The walls expanded and contracted like lungs. Cables dripped with condensation, or was it blood? As a low, pulsating hum filled the air. Dr. Park reached the fuse panel. "Ready? Now?" Riley shouted. Park yanked the lever. Instantly, the entire base screamed. Every light, every monitor, every wire let out a sound that was not mechanical, a wail, human and endless. Then, silence. The lights went dark. For a moment, Riley could hear only her heartbeat. Then, from behind her, "Riley!" It was Ethan again. She spun, flashlight cutting through darkness, and froze. Ethan stood 5 feet away, soaked in shadow. His eyes were black, but his face was human again. "Riley, it's me," he said softly. "It's gone. I stopped it." Her instincts screamed lie. "How do I know?" He smiled faintly. "Because you always hesitate before pulling the trigger." Her breath caught. That was true. Only Ethan would know that. She lowered her gun, slightly. "Where's Reed?" she asked. Ethan's expression twitched. "Just a flicker, enough." Riley raised her weapon again. "Where's Reed?" Then his voice broke, sliding down an octave, layered with static. "He's inside me." The walls rippled. The sound of breathing filled the hall again. Ethan, or what wore him, took a step closer. Riley fired. The shot tore through his chest, but instead of blood, faces spilled out. Dozens of them, translucent, screaming silently before dissolving into mist. The thing convulsed, then collapsed into vapor. Dr. Park fell to her knees. "We can't kill it. Every face it takes becomes another mask." Riley turned to her. "Then we trap it." The plan. They reached the elevator shaft, the only route to the surface. The elevator itself was dead, but the shaft opened into darkness. Riley tore open her bag, pulling out a flare, a detonator, and a half-empty vial of blood from earlier containment rituals. "We lure it here," she said. "Use the blood as anchor, ignite the flare, then blow the shaft. Trap it underground." Dr. Park stared at her. "You'll die down here too." Riley smirked. "Someone's gotta keep the door shut." Before Park could protest, the intercom came alive again, Reed's voice this time. "Riley. It's me. Don't do it." Park gasped. "That's his voice." "You can't contain it that way," Reed continued. "It'll only make it stronger. You need to finish the ritual, in the cabin." Riley froze. How would he know about the ritual? He wasn't there. The voice paused, then laughed. "Because I'm everywhere now." The intercom burst into static. Descent. The lights down the shaft flickered one by one, as if something was climbing up. Dr. Park screamed, "It's coming." Riley lit the flare. Go. Climb. I'm not leaving. Now? Park grabbed the ladder, climbing fast as Riley stayed behind, flare in one hand, detonator in the other. The air began to warp, the walls sweating black fluid. Something massive moved below, dragging itself upward, its head scraping metal, faceless and shining. Riley whispered, "Come on, you bastard." The flare burned bright red, lighting her face as the creature reached the bottom of the shaft. It looked up. No eyes, but somehow, it saw her. Really, why? Her thumb hit the detonator. White light engulfed everything. When the dust cleared hours later, only the upper facility remained intact. Dr. Park crawled through a vent, coughing, her ears ringing. Behind her, the elevator shaft glowed faintly red, molten steel cooling into silence. She pulled herself into the corridor and slumped against the wall. The intercom crackled once. Dr. Park. She froze. Riley didn't make it. It was Reed's voice again, calm, tired. "We are regrouping topside. Meet us at the dock." Then, faintly, under his voice, another whisper, barely audible. "No face left." Dr. Park dropped the radio, trembling. Then she realized, the wall beside her was still breathing. Rain fell over Seattle like ash. It was dawn, or what passed for dawn. The sky was the color of old bruises, the sound of thunder blending with sirens in the distance. Dr. Lena Park stumbled out from the collapsed service tunnel and into the deserted Tacoma port. The sea wind smelled of metal and oil. Behind her, the ground still hissed from the explosion. She wiped the blood from her temple and looked around. No one. Just rows of rusted containers, cranes half-lowered like dying giants. Then she saw him, Captain Reed, standing near a black SUV, coat soaked, expression unreadable. "Lena," he said softly. "You made it." Her breath caught. "You're alive." Reed nodded. "Barely. Mason didn't make it." Riley, his eyes flickered, a shadow passing behind them. "She stayed behind." Dr. Park's voice cracked. "She bought us time. The thing's trapped underground. For now." Reed exhaled. "Then let's finish this." The last transmission. They drove north toward Division 13's secondary outpost, an abandoned communications tower outside Olympia. The windshield wipers fought the endless rain. Dr. Park sat in silence, clutching her blood-stained tablet. Reed glanced at her. "You've got that look." "What look?" "The one that says you're still hearing it." She hesitated, then nodded. "It's not gone, Daniel. It's in the signal. Every time a radio cracks, every time the static flares, it's whispering. I can't stop hearing it." Reed said nothing. His knuckles whitened on the wheel. Then, faintly, from the sub's old cassette deck, came a voice. "Division 13. This is command. Do you read?" Reed frowned. "That's impossible. Command's been offline since." "Repeat, this is command." "Reed, Park, you are not alone. Proceed to Safe House Echo. We have visual." Dr. Park whispered, "That's not command." "We have visual," the voice repeated. "We have visual." The phrase looped 3 times, each slower, until it dissolved into laughter, wet, mechanical, human. Reed ripped the cassette deck from the dashboard and threw it out the window. For a moment, the car was silent again, except for the sound of rain, whispering against the glass. The empty city. They reached downtown Seattle by noon. The streets were empty. Cars sat abandoned in intersections, doors open, radios still humming static. Windows in the high-rises reflected nothing, as if the city itself had lost its reflection. Dr. Park stared through the windshield. "Where is everyone?" Reed slowed the SUV. Maybe evacuated. Maybe worse. Then they saw movement. A man standing in the middle of Pine Street, facing away from them. He wore a business suit, motionless in the rain. Reed rolled down his window. "Sir, Division 13. Are you injured?" The man turned. His face was blank. Smooth skin, stretched tight where features should be. Yet his mouth, invisible a moment ago, opened beneath the skin, a slit peeling upward. He spoke in Ethan's voice. "You can't run from what's inside you." Reed hit the accelerator. The SUV slammed into the man, and passed straight through him like fog. The figure dissolved into mist that bled across the hood. Dr. Park screamed, "It's using the city." Reed didn't stop until they reached the tower. Echo Tower. The tower loomed above the forest line, skeletal, covered in vines, its satellite dish rusted and pointing at the black sky. They entered through the side door, guns drawn. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Old analog equipment filled the walls, reels still spinning though no power should exist. Reed swept the room. Clear. Dr. Park approached the central console. The monitor flickered to life as she touched it, green code scrolling like veins. She whispered, "It's broadcasting." Reed frowned. "Broadcasting what?" She tapped the keyboard. The screen cleared, replaced by video feed, dozens of faces flashing in quick succession. Not real faces, recordings of people, all repeating the same phrase in different voices. No face left. Reed turned pale. "How far has it spread?" Park scrolled the coordinates. "Every frequency from Vancouver to Portland. It's hijacked the entire analog spectrum. Anyone who listens becomes part of it." Then, through the static, another face appeared. Ethan. He looked alive. Calm. His eyes were black pools, but his tone was almost gentle. "Dr. Park." "Captain Reed. You don't need to hide. It's over. It's awake now." Reed whispered, "That's not him. You taught it language," the voice continued. "You gave it a name. And now, it wants to thank you." The screen began to pulse in rhythm with the voice, every syllable a heartbeat, syncing with their own. Dr. Park clutched her chest. "It's pulling us in. Turn it off." Reed smashed the monitor with his pistol. Sparks erupted, plunging the room into darkness. But the voice didn't stop. "No face left. No face left. No." Reed grabbed Park's arm. "We need to burn this place. Now?" The fire. They poured fuel across the room, diesel from the generator, soaked into the old wooden walls. Park lit a flare. "Once we burn the tower, it loses its antenna link. The signal dies." Reed nodded. "Do it." She tossed the flare. Flames caught instantly, racing up the walls, licking the cables like veins on fire. But as they turned to leave, every radio in the tower came alive at once. Hundreds of voices, male, female, child, all speaking in unison. "You burn one voice. 1,000 remain." The heat surged, choking them. Reed grabbed Park's arm and dragged her out through the stairwell. They burst into the open air as the tower collapsed in a roar of flame. For a moment, the sky lit orange, beautiful, apocalyptic. Then the rain smothered the fire. And in the smoke, faces. Dozens of them, forming and vanishing in the mist. Dr. Park whispered, "It's using the water now." The harbor. By nightfall, they reached the docks. The sea was unnaturally calm, a black mirror stretching to the horizon. The cargo cranes loomed above, rusted skeletons against the storm. Reed opened the SUV's trunk, revealing a metal case. Inside, an ancient ritual dagger, silver edge etched with Latin sigils. Dr. Park recognized it instantly. The erasure blade. Reed nodded. Recovered from the Vatican archives. Dr. Yun's predecessor believed it could sever psychic links. We use this, we end it. Park looked doubtful. You mean you use it? Reed met her gaze. It's my mess. My team. My call. He looked out at the dark sea. Once I'm inside, seal the pier. No matter what you hear. Park hesitated. Daniel. But before she could finish, the water began to ripple. Something rose. A shape breaking the surface, massive, human-like, but twisted, dripping seawater and fog. It had dozens of faces, all merging, peeling, whispering. Among them, Riley's. Dr. Park screamed. It's using them all. The Faceless towered over the dock, its surface rippling with mouths that weren't mouths. Ethan's voice echoed from the center of the mass. We never left you, Captain. Reed raised the dagger. Then take mine. He lunged forward, driving the blade into the creature's chest. The world went white. The split. The explosion wasn't fire, it was memory. Every face the Faceless had stolen appeared in a blinding flash. Soldiers, scientists, children, Riley, all flickering like old film. The creature screamed, collapsing into mist. Reed fell to his knees, clutching the blade now blackened and smoking. The rain hissed as it met the burning steel. Dr. Park ran to him. Daniel. Daniel. He looked up, eyes hollow, face trembling. It's gone, he whispered. It's finally. Then he stopped. The air behind him shimmered. A reflection in the puddle showed two figures, but Reed's had no face. Park froze. Daniel. He turned to her. Slowly. It needed a new host, he said softly. And I said yes. Before she could react, Reed lunged, impossibly fast. She fired once, the shot tearing through his chest, but he didn't fall. He smiled, a smooth, featureless smile. No face left, he whispered. Then he walked backward into the sea, and vanished. 6 days later. News reports spread quietly, strange electrical fires across Seattle. Local stations interfered by unknown broadcast. No one mentioned Division 13. No one remembered the tower. In a motel outside Spokane, Dr. Park sat alone, staring at her laptop. The screen flickered. For a moment, she saw Ethan's reflection, not in the monitor, but behind her, in the dark window glass. He smiled. Part 3 begins where it all started, he whispered. The cabin in the forest. Then the screen went black. Outside, thunder rolled over the mountains. And in the rain-soaked reflection, for just a second, her face was gone. Part 3. Snow had fallen across Blackthorn Valley like a burial shroud. The forest was silent, no birds, no wind, only the sound of tires grinding over frozen mud. Dr. Lena Park sat in the back of the armored transport, her hands trembling around a thermos of black coffee gone cold. The other sat opposite her, 3 new Division 13 operatives, faces hidden behind matte respirators, Agent Voss, Corporal Hale, Tech Officer Myra Nguyen. Outside, the trees pressed close, their branches heavy with frost that resembled ash. Captain Reed's last transmission had led them here. To the place where everything had started. To the cabin. Arrival. The vehicle stopped beside the old logging road. The cabin stood ahead, half buried under snow, roof sagging, windows boarded. A single chimney leaned like a snapped bone. Voss checked his rifle. Thermals dead. No heat signatures. Park stepped out, boots crunching in the ice. That doesn't mean it's empty. Nguyen carried a small black case, the erasure blade, sealed inside a radiation-proof sheath. Its surface pulsed faintly, as if aware. The air was so cold that breath crystallized instantly. Each exhale looked like a soul trying to leave. Inside the house, the front door hung loose. Hale kicked it open, and the smell hit them: mildew, burnt copper, and something else, ozone, like the aftermath of lightning. Inside, the walls were covered in symbols. Painted in ash, carved into the beams, etched into the floorboards. Circles within circles. Faces without eyes. Nguyen whispered, "Looks like someone tried to contain it." Park knelt near the hearth, tracing one of the sigils. No, someone tried to invite it back. Her gloved fingers brushed against a pile of black tape reels, old field recordings from the 1st Division 13 expedition. Each labeled in fading ink: Blackful Voice Test Number 1, Cognitive Sample Number 6. The last reel was labeled Read. The tape. They powered the generator and fed the reel into the analog player. The machine whined to life, spinning. Read, on tape, this is Captain Daniel Reed. Field log, final attempt at erasure sequence. If you find this, don't finish the ritual. Static bled through the tape, then a soft hum began, like distant chanting. Read, it's not just language. It's memory trying to become flesh. It needs recognition to live. Don't. The voice fractured. Then another voice replaced it. Ethan, welcome back, Dr. Park. The lights flickered. Park froze. Stop the tape. Nguyen hit the switch, but the reel kept spinning. Ethan, on tape, you shouldn't have come alone. Voss looked around, gun raised. He's in the system. Audio bleed through. But Ethan's whisper was no longer from the tape, it was from the walls. You burned my face, Lena. I borrowed another. A shape emerged in the corner of the room, Reed. His uniform charred, skin pale, eyes empty. Park's voice broke. Daniel. Finish what we started. Manifestation. The lights died completely. From every crack in the walls, black smoke seeped, faces forming, dissolving, reforming. Hail fired into the dark. Bullets tore through vapor that screamed like static feedback. Nguyen shouted, EMP going live. She slammed a trigger, blue light burst outward in a concussive pulse. The smoke recoiled, screaming. For a moment, silence. Then Reed stepped fully into view. The air around him distorted, like heat mirage. Park whispered, he's not Reed. He's what's left of the signal wearing him. Reed a voice, call it whatever you like. You built it. You gave it words. He raised his hand, and the sigils on the walls flared, each glowing faintly red. The structure moaned. Nguyen screamed, it's reversing the containment. Park grabbed the erasure blade case. The latch snapped open, revealing the dagger's blackened edge. Voice, you think a blade can erase thought? Park lifted it, shaking. If it's written, it can be unwritten. The ritual begins. She stepped into the center of the cabin where the largest symbol was carved, a spiral of runes ending in an empty circle. Seal the exits, she commanded. Once I start, no one interrupts. Hale hesitated. You don't have clearance. Now? They obeyed, barricading the doors. The snow outside howled suddenly, though no wind touched the trees. Park knelt, placed the dagger in the circle, and began to recite the ancient phrases from the recovered Vatican Codex. Lingua mutata, memoria fracta, corpus invisus. Her voice wavered. Each word pulled light from the room. The shadows gathered behind her, forming a human outline. Read again, whispering. You can't erase what's become you. She ignored him. Anima delens nomen. The blade started to vibrate. Its black surface bled silver light. Nguyen's monitors went wild, radio frequencies spiking, unreadable waveforms screaming through her headset. It's rewriting itself, she gasped. Collapse. The floorboards began to warp, curling upward. The symbols glowed like coals. Outside, the forest bent inward, trees cracking as if drawn toward the cabin's heart. Voss shouted over the roar, "We're at threshold. Pull her out." Hale reached for Park, but the moment he touched her, his hand vanished. Gone at the wrist, erased like a smudge from existence. He fell back, screaming. Park's eyes glowed white. Her voice was no longer her own. Witness the unmaking. The room inverted, floor became ceiling, air turned liquid. The others saw flashes of faces, millions layered atop one another, all mouthing the same silent word, remember. Nguyen's headset burst into flame. She tore it off, crying out. Reed, whatever was left of him, stepped toward Park, arms open. Let it finish, Lena. Let it forget everything. She looked up, tears streaming, voice trembling. Not everything. And she plunged the dagger into her own chest. The erasure. Light exploded outward, blinding, pure, silent. Every sound in the world seemed to stop. Radios went dead. Static ceased. The snow itself froze mid-fall. Inside the cabin, time fractured. The operatives saw fragments. Reed screaming without sound. The symbols burning away. Park's face dissolving into white fire. Then nothing. When Voss awoke, he was outside. The cabin was gone, only a crater of black glass remained. Hale lay beside him, breathing shallowly. Nguyen's eyes stared at the sky, reflecting static that wasn't there. Voss touched his earpiece. Silence. No signal. Only the wind, whispering through the trees like a distant voice saying thank you. Aftermath. They buried what was left at dawn. No one came to retrieve them. Division 13's uplink had gone dark worldwide. Voss wrote in the field log. Operation Erasure complete. Dr. Park terminated the anomaly by self-sacrifice. No residual broadcast detected within 200 kilometers. He paused before the final line. Her reflection did not return. He closed the book, lit a flare, and placed it where the cabin had stood. The snow melted into a perfect circle. Then, faintly, from somewhere beneath the ice, came the sound of a heartbeat. Just once. Then silence. The world awakens into a peculiar quiet. Streets hum with life, yet something is missing. News broadcasts, textbooks, even the sprawling archives of digital history, every trace of the Faceless has been scrubbed. Libraries hold books that never mentioned the disappearances. Footage from surveillance cameras, once teeming with glimpses of strange shadows, now shows empty corridors. Governments, corporations, even conspiracy forums have erased every record. People shrug off a lingering unease as nothing more than a shared dream. We follow Ethan Cole, a surviving analyst from Division 13, as he wanders the ruins of the old archives building in New York City. Dust swirls in the sunbeams streaming through shattered windows, illuminating filing cabinets that seem almost to hum with absence. He flips open a file folder and finds nothing. Blank sheets. The paper seems to whisper in some intangible way, an echo of something that never existed. He slumps against a wall, the weight of a truth too vast to fully comprehend pressing into his chest. Somewhere deep inside, a memory resists erasure, the terror, the chaos, the hunger of the Faceless. But the world no longer recognizes it, and Ethan is forced to reconcile a private memory with collective amnesia. Through montages, we see cities around the globe experiencing the same phenomenon. In Tokyo, trains run normally, yet the once famous Faceless murals on skyscrapers have vanished. In London, a museum exhibit that once chronicled the unknown entities is replaced with abstract modern art, leaving only faint impressions in the minds of older visitors. A child in Rio de Janeiro sketches a faceless figure in chalk, then stops, confused, as if the image itself is being erased from her imagination. The cinematography emphasizes absence, empty frames where memories used to reside, long tracking shots through ghostly streets, muted tones that suggest a world suffocating beneath its own oblivion. Ethan's investigation leads him to a clandestine meeting with an old Division 13 operative, Ling, who survived the erasure because her mind was shielded by experimental neural encryption. Mara's apartment is a chaotic cathedral of memory, walls covered with photographs, notebooks filled with fragmented accounts, old VHS tapes, and even audio cassettes, all attempting to anchor a reality that everyone else has forgotten. The room itself is dimly lit, dust motes floating in streams of orange light, evoking a sanctum of forbidden knowledge. Mara explains that the erasure did not annihilate the faceless, it merely rewrote the collective memory of humanity, removing recognition of their existence from history, media, and consciousness. The faceless themselves are still present, lurking in the folds of reality where memory cannot reach. They are shadows beyond perception, slipping between the gaps of forgotten history, their hunger unbound by human recollection. Every person, every institution, every record of them has been overwritten, but their presence lingers like static on a forgotten frequency. The horror is subtle yet absolute, a threat that is invisible precisely because no one remembers to fear it. Ethan and Mara scour remaining archives, hacking cryptid databases, and conduct late-night experiments with residual memory triggers, old photographs, fragmented dreams, and recurring patterns in human behavior that hint at the erased presence. They witness inexplicable events, shadows moving in peripheral vision, whispers in empty alleys, digital glitches that suggest something exists just out of reach. Each discovery is more unsettling than the last, painting a picture of a world asleep to its own peril. As they dig deeper, the duo uncovers a chilling revelation: the erasure was not a final victory. A global council, panicked by the potential for mass hysteria, authorized the procedure, believing humanity could survive by forgetting. But the faceless adapted. Their existence now operates in the interstitial space between remembered reality and oblivion, feeding not on physical victims, but on the unclaimed shadows of memory itself. Every forgotten trace becomes a conduit for their subtle influence, and as humanity continues forward, blissfully unaware, the faceless grow stronger in the spaces where nothing is remembered. The climax of the segment is intimate yet terrifying. Ethan and Mara watch old surveillance footage of what should no longer exist, a city street teeming with the faceless, projected onto a cracked, flickering screen. Though the world outside continues in cheerful ignorance, the screen reveals a truth that cannot be ignored: the faceless are waiting, patient and eternal, their existence now more insidious because to forget them is to make them omnipresent. The shot lingers on Ethan's haunted eyes, Mara's tense grip on the projector, and the subtle movement of a shadow in the room that should be empty. The segment closes with a sense of unresolved dread: the world has survived, but the nightmare has only changed shape. The faceless, now more cunning than ever, start using humanity's forgetfulness as a weapon. Governments and corporations unknowingly become conduits for their influence, creating infrastructure and policies that inadvertently serve their hidden agenda. Roads, buildings, and media networks are subtly restructured to favor pathways where the faceless can exert the most impact. Ethan and Mara witness eerie incidents that confirm the faceless adaptability. A fully operational airport terminal loops travelers through seemingly endless corridors, subtly disorienting them. Digital advertisements flicker in rhythms that trigger unease and confusion. Crowds in public squares momentarily freeze, their peripheral vision catching impossible shadows that vanish when observed directly. Cinematography emphasizes claustrophobia and subtle horror, long tracking shots through mirrored hallways, aerial views of crowded streets where shadows twist unnaturally, and over-the-shoulder perspectives showing Ethan and Mara observing events no one else perceives. Music and sound design focus on low-frequency hums, indistinct whispers, and fleeting tonal anomalies that heighten tension without overtly revealing the threat. As the segment progresses, Ethan experiences intense psychological strain. He begins seeing the faceless even outside of controlled experiments, brief flashes in peripheral vision, fleeting glimpses on subway cameras, and reflections in windows where nothing should be there. Mara warns him of the dangers. Seeing them too often risks mental destabilization, as the mind struggles to reconcile what the world refuses to acknowledge. A breakthrough occurs when Ethan and Mara decode residual Division 13 archives. The faceless operate in memory echo zones, areas where the human mind has completely forgotten their presence. These zones act as invisible